Mr. Watts, he is armed himself. Shots. Shots. Watch it. Tear gas. Live rounds. Also, I can see that.
That's the Quentin!
That man is a boxer, man. I like your hand put in the boxer, man, to do that.
But since Mike wasn't there, no, you come on the East Coast.
You listen to me.
Right? No, you come to the East Coast.
You listen to me now.
You gotta listen to me too, man.
I am listening to
Right?
you.
Now, I see you on the East Coast. The day when they get a protest of them, the next day, that's when you see one bigger heads come up to talk to my family. Right? And that's bad. If you didn't do a protest, you want to see nobody for justice. You see? I'm not holding back nothing. I'm not holding back nothing. I just need justice for my family.
I get visitors all of a sudden. All of a sudden, you all have visitors. This is Joker. Who is that Joker? That piece of plum. They know who to deal with, you know.
Just the topic.
Right.
Right? It's not just the topic. I tell you, it's hard work. It's you putting yourself into the topic, believing in what you're saying, and convincing somebody out there what you're saying. Because I could go and stand up one person on the stage and sing the song.
Dead.
It reach nowhere, it touch nobody. You understand? So you have to bring this song to life.
Voices from the ghetto. When I hear Gil, I'm a pause.
I just raise my own voice.
I just raise
my own voice. To be honest.
Hey, it's only happening right here on Caribbean Inside. We're chatting with singing Sandra, the Calypso monarch of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago for the year 2003. So let's go to the videotape.
What if recording high-quality content, editing like a pro, and streaming like a star was as simple as hitting record? With Riverside, it's just that.
Meditation, I took a journey spiritually. My eyes beheld a vision shone clearly in front of me. Well, in the vision I saw an old man slowly beating a drum, humming a melody that was strange to me. Then he called me and said, Sandra, come. He arose and he showed me a country, beautiful everywhere, a land of endless bounty and the riches beyond compare. There was enough for everybody, for all their material needs. But alas, when the old man showed me my people, they were all overpowered with greed. And the old man beat it drum. The old man beat it drum. He said, take this melody, girl, go to your country, warn them of the wrath to come, and if you hear him, bye-bye, revelation time. This is revelation. This is revelation. I want them of the wrath. He gonna take want them of the wrath to come. Leaders were fighting each other. They were tearing the people apart. Friends who used to live happy together, now hatred filling their hearts. Neighbors were cursing neighbors, whole villages in mayhem. I heard they were listening deceitful leaders who were preaching for doctrine to them. Look, compassion went out of the window. Deviousness reigned instead. Morality was low, but the people were spiritually dead. But the old man beat it wrong. The old man beat it wrong. He said, take this melody, girl, go to your country, warn them of the land. And if you hear, One them on the run, gone again. Revelation, revelation, one them on the run. Now what he tell me? He said, go tell it on the mountain, over the hills, and everywhere. Oh, tell it on the mountain. The old man beat his drum. The youths were all in a quandary, no sense of direction. They lost all hope cause they just can't cope. They're already yet, but they're gone. They have no respect for their elders, no respect for themselves also. Their spirits were all in tatters and reading an all-time low. Then I hear them cussing the system, they're cussing the leaders too. But they were raping, stealing, shooting and looting, cause they all had nothing else to do. The old man beat his drum. The old man beat his drum. He said, take this melody, girl. What to your country, born over the road to come and play. Born over the road to come. We gonna again. Revelation time. This is revelation. This is revelation. Born over the road to come. He said, talk to your spiritual leaders. Tell them get on their knees and pray. To get rid of all these karmas that driving good spirits away. Then he tell them, talk to your fellow Calypsonians. Tell them stop the shame and disgrace. Encouraging people to get on bad, jump up and mash up the place. But behold, I saw the sunrise coming over the mountain range. The old man said, that is a symbol of hope if your people get serious and change. But the old man beat his drum. The old man beat his drum. He said, take this melody, girl, go to your country, warn them on the road.
I know you guys feel that. I hope your paws raised. Some of you who can't handle it, drink some more.
Mr. Watts, he's armed himself shots. Shots, watch it, tear gas. Live rounds. Also, I can see that.
Just the window! The man is a boxer, man. I like your put in the boxer, man, to do that.
But since my cousin there, no, you come on the East Coast.
You listen to me.
Right? No, you come to the East Coast.
You listen to me now.
You gotta listen to me too, man.
I am listening to you.
Right? Now, I see you on the East Coast. The day when they get a protest of them, the next day, that's when you see one bigger heads come up to talk to my family. right? And that's bad. If we didn't do a protest, we want to see nobody for justice. You see? I'm not holding back nothing. I'm not holding back nothing. I just need justice for my family.
I get visitors all of a sudden. All of a sudden, you all get visitors. This is Joker. Who is that Joker? That piece of plum. They know who the dealer with you know.
Remember, donations go towards purchasing laptops for needy children.
I saw an old man slowly playing a drum, humming a melody that was strange to me, and then he called me, he said, Dana, come. He arose and he showed me a country, beautiful everywhere, a land with endless bounty and riches beyond compare. Now there was enough for everybody to meet the material needs. But alas, when the old man showed me the people, they was all overpowered with greed. Oh, and the old man played the drum. The old man played the drum. He said, take this melody, girl, go to your country and warn them of the road to come. And if you hear it, boom, bam, bam. Revelation time. This is revelation. Mama. Revelation. Warn them of the word. He start to walk. Walk. Warn them of the road to come. Leaders was fighting leaders. There was tearing the people apart. Friends who used to live loving together, now hatred filling their heart. Neighbor was cussing neighbor, whole villages in mayhem. I hear they wasn't listening to deceitful leaders who preaching false doctrine to them. Compassion gone out the window, deviousness reigned instead. Morality was reading low, cause my people, they were spiritually dead. Oh, and the old man, he played drum. I said, the old man, he played the drum. He said, take this melody, girl, go to your country and warn them of the road to come. And if you hear it, man, revelation. Oh, this is revelation. Mama, revelation, warn them of the road. And then we take another walk now. Warn them of the road to come. And then he said, go tell it on the mountain, over the hills, and everywhere. Go tell it on the mountain that the old man played the drum. And if you hear it, boom, bam, bam. Revelation, oh, this is revelation. Warn them of the road to come. I'm born. Warn them of the road to come. Adana! I lay down in meditation. I took a journey spiritually. My eyes beheld a vision
shone clearly in front of me. Now in the vision I saw an old man slowly play the drum, humming a melody that was strange to me, and he called me, he said, Dana, come. He arose and he showed me a country, beautiful everywhere, a land of endless bounty and riches beyond compare. But there was enough for everybody to meet their material needs. But alas, when the old man showed me my people, they were all overpowered with greed. Oh, and the old man, oh yes, the old man, oh yes, take this melody, girl, go to your country and warn them on the road. And if you hear him, boom, bam, bam, the revelation time. This the revelation. The revelation, whatever the road. And then it's the go tell it on the mountain over the land. And everywhere, oh, that the old man be from. Oh, one more walk. Oh, one more time. On the muddy road to come.
What's now? Danai!
Leaders was fighting leaders. They was tearing the people apart. Friends who used to live loving together, now hatred filling their heart. Neighbor was cussing neighbor, whole villages in mayhem. I hear they was listening to deceitful leaders who preaching false doctrine to them. Compassion flew out the window, deviousness reigned instead. Morality was reading low, 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 cause my people, they were spiritually dead. And the old man played the drum. I said the old man played the drum. He said, take this melody, girl, go to your people and warn them on the road. And then he said, boom, bam, bam, revelation, boom, bam, bam. This is revelation, boom, bam, bam. Revelation, warn them on the road to come. And then he said, go, tell it on the mountain. Oh yeah, he said, go, warn them on the road to come. And then he said, go, tell it on the mountain over the hill. And everywhere, go, tell it on the mountain. What you gonna tell them? That the old man played drum.
Oh yes, go tell it on the mountain. The old man beat the drum. Whole village was in mayhem. I hear they were listening to deceitful leaders. And when I check, I find that my people were spiritually dead. And so we went to the mountain top. Go tell it on the mountain. Some spiritualism here tonight. The spirit is always present. I don't care which church you go to. The Spirit is there in you. Whether you go to the English church or the Catholic or the 7 Days or the Methodist, you take that Spirit there. The old man beat the drum. And we're telling it on the mountain. We're telling it on the mountain. Good evening to you. Good evening to you and welcome to Politics 101 on a Tuesday night. Tuesday. Welcome to all of you. I am so eternally grateful for all the outpouring. All of you have taken to social media and all the media and standing up for yourself. Standing up for yourself. Standing up for yourself. This is not about David Hines. I am just a vessel that is being used by my people to go tell it on the mountain. This is about you. They can take me out tomorrow, but they cannot take out the race. They can condemn me, but they cannot condemn Africans. And there are always moments when we come face to face with the beast. Sometimes the beast lurks in our ranks. And we have to tell it on the mountain. We have to tell it on the mountain. Good evening to all of you wonderful people, whether you're joining us from the United States or Canada, Africa, Europe, or at Ground Zero in Guyana. Good evening to all the wonderful people at Linden, Mackenzie, Christianburg, Amelia's Ward. Good evening to you. Good night to all of you. Good night to all of you. We say we love you. We love you and we're going to keep loving you. Self-love, Brother Malcolm X said, self-love is the greatest love. If you don't love yourself, you can't love nobody else. You can't love nobody else. Good evening. We expect Mr. Lenno Craig to join us tonight. One of the persons who took offense to my commentary last Monday. I think I called his name. Like Brother James Bond. He has agreed to come on. I haven't seen him yet. I don't know if he has changed his mind. But we don't bite over here. I am prepared to have a conversation with any black brother who feels that I have called them out and I've wrongfully done so. I'm prepared to sit down and to talk with any black brother or sister who feel that I've exposed them or that I'm being vulgar, or whatever else they say. No surrender, no retreat, no apologies. How can I apologize for singing Sandra or Lady Adana, who with their rhythmic soul and their African feminine voices point us in a direction that says no retreat, no surrender. No retreat, no surrender. Good evening. Good evening to all of you. We don't know whether Mr. Craig is coming, but whether he comes or not, the show must go on. The show must go on. The days are ticking. The ERC, as I imagine, started their investigation. I can't wait for the trial. I want them to charge me. I've never been so eager to be charged, because that will be the trial of the century. And I want them when they're trying me to beam it public, because I'm ready. I'm ready. I've been waiting for this moment now for 4 to 5 years to confront those who think that Guyana belongs to them and who think that my people, African people, are so stupid that we will walk into slavery because they say, come. I've been waiting. There is nothing about what I said and did that was an outburst. You all have been here every night, and you all know I've been warming for 5 years. It was Bobby Seale, the Black Panther, who said, seize the time. Seize the time. Seize the time. Seize the time. You know, they're hunting all over to find some brother who is going to say, I condemn David Hines. And they found my young friend from Linden. He's the latest one. They've been searching all over to find one. And they found Jermaine Figueroa. And I read and reread what Brother Jermaine said. And as I said yesterday, last night, and I'm saying it again, I leave Jermaine to you all because you all know how to deal with Jermaine. I am not going to go after Jermaine. I think Jermaine doesn't understand the depth of what is going on here. He doesn't have a sense of history. And so therefore, I will let the brother slide. You know, and I think, you know, they're going to go searching for another one. Every 3 days they're going to come out with one, you know. But we have our work to do. We have our work to do, and we are doing our work. We are doing our work. We live in a Guyana, a country Guyana, that all of us who tenant it are trying to make it our permanent home. We've been doing so for centuries. We came here, some of us against our will, and others voluntarily. And we met people. We met the native people, the Amerindians. Some of us were able, even with chains around our feet and chains around our minds, we were able to free ourselves even in bondage to make Guyana habitable, to turn an uncivilized wild coast into a place where human beings can live. We did that in bondage. And so that our brothers and sisters who were here before and those who came after will not live in chains. And we will not allow those whom we created a state of freedom for try to re-enslave us. Try to re-enslave us. You know, the pain that we have endured in Guyana, and especially these last 5 years, I wonder which other group would be able to endure that pain. Some of us suffer in silence. Some of us fight in silence. I once applied to work in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. My country, Guyana, I had a master's degree then. I was not hired. I later found out from the subject minister at that time that the matter was taken to the highest councils of the PPP, and it was rejected. I was not allowed to work. A combination of recruitment at CARICOM and my desire to work at CARICOM after then happened. And CARICOM has a policy, if they're hiring a senior staff, they would consult the home country. My home country, Guyana, was consulted, and my government told CARICOM that they would not support me being hired because I'm an anti-government activist. The university where I've worked for the last 23 years, I've had no less than 20 no less than 20 reports sent to them charging me with racism and overthrowing the government and all sorts of things. No less than 20. One of the messages was traced back to the office of the president. It sent a message to my university saying that I was involved in overthrowing the Guyana government. The university, as they are bound to do, sought to make contact with me. The Guyana government could not give them any information. They hunted me down, and I was at a conference in Jamaica. The university managed to find me there. And the first thing they asked, "Are you safe?" And I said, "Yes, I'm at a conference in Jamaica." They said, "Jamaica?" I said, "Yes." They said, "We are in possession from the office of the president of Guyana that you are part of a plot to overthrow the government. So our assumption is that you are either in government, having overthrown your government, or you're in jail." I told the director of my school, "Doc, I am safe, I'm not in jail, and I'm not in charge of any government. I'm at a conference in Jamaica at the Jamaican Pegasus." Every time I travel to Guyana, immigration officers are not allowed to let me in. They have to seek permission from somebody. And when the permission is given, they would ask, "Clear?" And then the immigration officers would smile with me and say, "Have a good night," or "Have a good day, Dr. Hines." Now, when they see me, they're smiling. In my own country, I have to be cleared by some king or queen I don't know before I enter. I tell those stories to say I am not a complainer. I'm in politics, and I expect wicked governments to do what wicked governments do. And I will never allow them to believe that they're hurting me. Never. I'm telling these stories now in public because I'm getting to be an old man now. and I have to leave the truth, that is the government. That is the government that is governing us. And that is the government some of our African brothers and sisters are trying to entice our people with little gifts of money and jobs to go over to. If they can do what they're doing to me, what will they do to defenseless African Guyanese? This government is the most wicked government. This government, the most wicked government that we've had since colonialism. This government, in the last 5 years, as Transparency International said, they have become the captive of political and economic interests, political and elites and economic elites. And I want to break that down for us. There are economic elites in our country. There have always been economic elites. The Europeans first, and then after emancipation, the Portuguese came. They couldn't work on the slave plant, sugarcane plantations. The Chinese came, they couldn't work there, and the Europeans gave them affirmative action and pushed them into the commercial sector. And they became economic elites. Our East Indian brothers and sisters came, they were indentured. And when indentured came to an end in 1917, some of them were picked and they became part of the economic elite. All the time, Africans who sought to get into the commercial sector were prevented to either by force or by laws. Force and or laws. Amerindians didn't even get a peep in because they were outside of the coast that Africans tamed. They were still in the wild coast in the interior. They didn't matter. And so this economic elite, which is a social elite because of class, but that social elite has a racial face. They were Portuguese, a little Chinese, and East Indian. That elite that controls 90% of the wealth in Guyana. When I got into politics in the 70s, we fought against Mr. Burnham's PNC, taking over the economy of the country and putting it in the hands of the state. 80% of the economy was put in the hands of the state. We called them state capitalism, and we opposed Burnham for it. But as time went on, and as we move into PPP rule, we understood what Burnham was doing. That it was his way of removing the control of the wealth from that small elite into the control of the state. Forget about whether he did a good job or a bad job at it, but the objective was to free up the wealth of our country from those elites. A lot of them left the country. Michael Manley attempted to do the same thing in Jamaica. He called it redistribution of the wealth between 1972 and 1980 under what he called democratic socialism. Mr. Burnham called it cooperative socialism. We knew what happened to Manley. He was hounded out of power. He didn't take over. He attempted to redistribute the wealth. Mr. Burnham went further. He took over. And like I said, as time went on, people like myself developed a more nuanced understanding of what Burnham was trying to do. By the time Burnham died, the world was changing. The Cold War had come to an end, and something called globalization took hold. The IMF and the World Bank came in to the Caribbean and Africa and Asia and the so-called third world and said, the colonials are gone. You try to redistribute the wealth. That era is over. And now we are going to find a new system. What globalization meant, among other things, was that 80% of the economy that Burnham took away from the control of that small elite was now being restored to that small elite. The IMF and the World Bank told Mr. Hoyt that you have to sell out state resources. Who bought the state resources? That small elite. Dr. Jagan came to power, and because of the deal he made with the Western powers, despite all the socialism and that he talked about all his life, he had to continue turning over the wealth to that small elite. By the time he died in 1997, some little numbskull boys that he mentored and brought up decided to give away everything. And so our wealth, our patrimony is now back in the hands of that elite. And that elite vowed never again to allow any government to take back that wealth. And so they came up with a little scheme. Let us take over the parties. And the party in Guyana that was ripe for taking over was the PPP. Almost by a fluke, the Granger-led coalition was able to seize power via the ballot box in 2015. And the Granger government attempted to put a brake on this wholesale transfer of resources to the small economic elite. And the small economic elite was able to pump literally tens of millions of US dollars into the PPP. And they use that money to lobby the powers that be, lobby the United States government, lobby European government, lobby all the so-called civil society organizations, penetrate them, penetrate CARICOM, literally spend millions and millions of dollars. That money didn't come from Indian Guyanese in Guyana. It didn't come from sugar workers. It didn't come from rice farmers. It came from the economic elite. And they overthrew the Granger administration. They did to him what they did to Michael Manley in 1980. They didn't, go and send soldiers in and overthrow them. They used money and overthrew Granger. The ballot box was just the means for the overthrow. And if you're part of the economic elite and you spend that money on a government, when that government comes to power, you got to get back your money. So when you see the PPP government with the massive budgets, by now we have got oil, they knew then. When they were overthrowing Granger, they knew the amount of money that was coming. Don't worry what they're telling you all, but 10 billion barrels. We got about 30 billion barrels of oil at the bottom of that ocean. And they know it. And they overthrew Granger. They spend a lot of money to do it. Our election is perhaps the first election in modern history where one set of contestants were sanctioned before the results were announced. You usually wait until, as they did in Venezuela, the elections are over, and then they put sanction on Maduro. But the count wasn't finished, and sanctions were put on members of Granger administration. I've looked around to see where is the parallel in the world. I couldn't find any. And so for the last 5 years, the PPP has spent its time as captive of that economic elite. When between 50 and 60% of at $1.3 trillion is being put to capital projects, that is the way, that is the means to drain the money back to the economic elites. If you spend money on literacy, you can't drain it back to the economic elites. They're not interested in literacy. If you spend money on wages, better wages for teachers, better wages for nurses, better wages for public servants, better wages for sugar workers, if you spend the money on that, it can't go to the economic elite. It's going to those workers. So you understand why our government don't spend money there. They spend money where the money can go back to the economic elites. So when Transparency International say our government has become captive of the economic elites, that's what they mean. And when that money goes back to the economic elites then take some of that money and they're going to spend it on, give it back to the PPP to spend on this coming election. Jack Dio let the cat out of the bag. You know, him out boss. He said, we don't need state resources. PPP don't need resources. We know you don't need state resources directly because you're getting state resources indirectly. The money that you give in capital projects to the elites, they're passing back some of that money to you to fight the 2025 election. Are you hearing me out tonight? Today, Tuesday is my teaching day, so I'm in a teaching mood tonight. So it is state money, but it's not a direct taking of the state money, it's indirect. And it's that money that they're taking and giving it to some of our innocent and not so innocent African brethren and say, here, come. We gonna make you rich. Here is you 10 million, how much they give them. But here we giving you a slush fund there that you are going to go into the African Guyanese communities. And you are going to spend this on African Guyanese young men and women and bring them over. We don't need them. We don't need them to win an election as such. We need their numbers just in case we fall short by a seat or so. I mean, the PPP know that in the end, black people gonna cut them. They know that. They know in the end that if they give out 2,000 contracts to young black people, 1,900 gonna cut them. They know that. They know that. They know that. But they need 100 to put in the back pocket, just in case. The people are not stupid. They're not going to depend on black votes to win an election. They're not going to do it. They're not going to depend on black vote. They're not stupid. But they want that black vote, the couple black vote in their pocket. But more than that, what they're doing is they are setting young black people against their own leaders. They're saying to those black people, your votes can be transacted. You can sell your vote. You don't have to give your vote to AFC and PNC and WP and whoever else. Sell your vote. Because they then look after you. So they're enticing our people to trivialize the vote. And if you trivialize the vote, you don't get time for go at no ballot box and vote. And then by pointing a few dollars to our young people who are really in dire straits, you are setting them up to say, I ain't get time with Nathan. I ain't get time with Nigel Hughes. So what they're doing is using the money partly to secure a little vote here and there, but they're not stupid. It's not so much the vote. What they're using their money to do is to buy the vote, not necessarily to use it for them to win, but to buy the vote so that that vote cannot be used for the PNC and the AFC and the WP and the coalition. That's what they're doing. For every African voter that they can convince not to vote by giving them money and say, me and them on stupidness with Nathan and them, even if they don't vote for the PPP, the fact that they may not vote for the coalition is what the PPP is up to. So when I launched my attack last Monday, they knew immediately where I was going. They're not stupid. They knew immediately where I was going. I wasn't going for James Bond or Lenno Craig. They're just the means. I was going to those young Africans whose vote they are trying to buy. Buy partly to vote for them, but mostly for not to vote for us. And they knew immediately where David Hines was going. They know me. 50 years are doing this. And the PPP, one thing they know the WPA well. They know us well. That's why they would wish us to go away. Oh, they get 5 members, they get 2 members, and they want we to fall up, and we fall up. Then they can ride on. Oh no. They know damn well. And you see, one of the things they know about me is that I know the language, the folk language well. And I know what will get black people to open their eye. They know that I know the language. One PPP man tell me in private, he said, David Hines, you know why we just go so hard on you all? I said, tell me. He said the PNC just go for the black vote, but you all just go for the black mind. PPP leader told me that. He said, you know, PNC just go for the vote. You all just go for the mind. I tell you, well, that's why the PNC and the WPA is a good matchup, because we can get both vote and mind. They knew what I was going. You see, all this pouring out of condemnation is not by accident, but you see, they get catch in their own doo-doo. Because then you see when you see in politics, when you panic, you do stupidness. So they panic. Put it on the front page of the Chronicle, hoping, because in their calculation, you're the bossing. Oh, you are going to see what's going to happen. You know, Brother Lenno said David Hines can talk cheese. Because in their head, I don't know whether they're doing poll or whatever they're doing, they feel that they get black people 75% in the plantation. So they hope when they put it in the Chronicle, black people will come up left, right, and center and say, condemn David Hines, and so on. And what they did was to give the thing legs, which is what I wanted. I will never get into the Chronicle. I could send 100 letters to the Chronicle, they wouldn't publish one. The only way I would get into the Chronicle, as I've been getting into the Chronicle, and the NCN, and all the PCN, and all the state thing, the only way I would get into it is when I touch them where it matters. So from the present president to the past president, my friend Donald Ramutar, to Roy, all of them coming out. The contradiction with them is that it said David Hines and the WPA don't matter. But look how David Hines bring out all of them from the corner. I bring out all of them. And I want more to come out. I know you all are listening. I know NCN listening. I know you all taping. I'm going to give you all the headline for tomorrow morning papers. I want you all to give me more publicity. ERC, I want you all to put 5 more charges on me. Because that is what I set it up for. I'm not in politics 50 years and be a damn fool. I didn't study politics to be a damn fool. So you all keep looking for every corner to see if you can find Jermaine today, and then tomorrow you're going to think, and so on. My comrade Takumo Ogunse wrote a letter to Stabrook News and Village Voice. He didn't send it nowhere else. He didn't send it to the Chronicle. The Chronicle will never carry a letter. Today on Chronicle front page, they carry Ogunse letter. And what Ogunse saying in the letter is that, are you charging me too? And they give Ogunse big publicity. People calling me all day. I just got put my phone in one room in order to sleep in another room all day, all night. Because people sometimes don't know that I'm 3 hours behind Guyana and so on. To tell me about how from young people to old people to children, lick bottom. And I didn't invent the term. I got the term from Brother Crow, the Calypsonian. And I said, this is right. So that is what happened. That economic elite, give them the money to overthrow Granger. Because they have to pay all these high-level people to go and to lobby this body, lobby that body. You got to pay big money to get to pump you. You don't get to pump you without money. You have big money they have to pay lobbyists to get to pump you and to get to this body. And so they've become captive of that economic elite. Then there is a political elite. These are the Ravi Devs of the world. These are the Indian culturalists and political and cultural people who always feel that the political control that they think Africans have, that they have to wrest that political control. That they must not be satisfied with the economic control of the society. In Barbados, for example, if I may digress, there's a small white population in Barbados because Barbados was the only settler colony in the English-speaking Caribbean. That's the only place white people settled. A lot of people don't realize that the Barbadian parliament is the second oldest parliament in the world because the white people who settled there had to have their parliament. At one time, they seceded from England. A lot of people don't know that. And so as they came down to independence, the arrangement in Jamaica was that the white people will control the economy and black people will control politics. Unwritten agreement. And for a long time, there was an unwritten, silent, unwritten thing in Guyana. Look, Indian and Portuguese people and so on will control the economy. Africans will control the army and the politics. But these guys decided that that model has to go through. They want to control the politics. They want to control the army, the police, and everything. And they've spent the last 20 years, 30 years trying to do that. They tried to get Indians to go into the army. Indians wouldn't go into the army. Okay, you don't demonize something and then tell your people go and join it. They won't join it. So they decide to capture the leadership of the army and the police, which is what they've done. And Brother Brutus exposed them. They tell them they got to diversify. Diversify means diversify and control the leadership. And so we saw Brother Ravi go to India and told Indians, come to Guyana and make money. Your people over there, they've kept the Indian culture alive. Come there. You have a home there. Come and make money in Guyana. We played it on this program here, Brother Ravi Dev. And Ravi, who is the architect of the political takeover, the Indian political takeover of Guyana. Years ago, in one of the debates that we have been having, they were telling me about democratizing the army and bring. I said, well, when you all democratize the money, I will agree to democratize the army. Ravi never forget that. And so that group of Indian nationalists have been able to get in the ears of the PPP. And they're the ones who gave Irfan Ali that One Guyana slogan. What the One Guyana means is that Indian hegemony at the top and Africans and Amerindians assimilate under Indian hegemony. Well, the same books that Ravi read, I read. So immediately after 2020, I said, black people, close ranks. Close ranks. Don't worry about this crossover thing. Close ranks. Ravi cost me for 5 years. In his article this weekend, he said David Hines was right in the logic of things to ask black people to close ranks. And the reason I ask us to close ranks is that if we do not close ranks, then we make it easy for Indian political and economic hegemony, which is what they're after. So when that Orphan Ali talk about one Guyana, he's talking about Indian hegemony with African and Amerindian assimilation. And if Africans don't want to assimilate willingly, we will bully them to assimilate, and we will use money to bully them to assimilate. And so these brothers and sisters who are going over to the PPP, some of them knowingly, some of them unknowingly, that's what they're going into. That's their job, is to help the PPP to assimilate Africans. I could care less about any African who want to go over to the PPP. I could care less. That's a personal business. I fight for their right to do that. I went to jail for their right to go and try in PPP. So I don't care about them trying in PPP. That's not my problem. Is having joined the PPP what will be used knowingly and unknowingly to do. I think some of them know what they're going to call over there to do, and some of them I don't think understand. And that's what I'm saying, knowingly and unknowingly. With all due respect to somebody like Lenno Craig, who I know, I do not think Lenno would knowingly do something like that. I think Lenno genuinely, was dissatisfied like I was in the way the coalition operated. And I think he genuinely feels that, if I go over there, I can make a change. So I would put him in the category of unknowing. I don't think he understands the grand design. I don't think he understands it. So I wouldn't put somebody like that as knowingly. Even James Bond, I am not too sure that James Bond knows knowingly. I think James, like a lot of Africans, have their personal and maybe ideological reasons, I don't know, for going over. I think so. I know there's some who knowingly do it. But whether you knowingly do it or unknowingly doing it, you are doing it. You are doing it. When you say, I'm going to campaign for Orphan Ali and the PPP, for the PPP, they don't need, and James says it. James says it. That's what I'm saying. I am hesitant about saying that James says the PPP doesn't need him to win an election. He knows that. They need him for something else, but not to win an election. And it is that something else that I am exposing. Is that when you give 20 young men $1 million contract, $1 million that some of those young men never see in their life. Never see in their life. And when you give them $1 million contract, they will either vote for the PPP or they will withhold their vote from the coalition. Either way, you are buying their vote. And I think vote buying, whether you know, whether the seller know that that's what you're doing or not, is immoral and undemocratic. And so the attempt to assimilate black people under the PPP. That's what the political elite. So the PPP, as Transparent International say, they've become captive of that economic elite and that political elite. The economic elite wants to control the resources, the money. The political elite wants to control the political power. And politics determine who gets what, when, and where. So the two, when you fuse them together, is a dangerous mix. And the third factor is that we have a PPP party who believe in manifest destiny, meaning that the PPP is manifest, is ordained by God or Karl Marx or whoever that they must govern Guyana. Not the PPP, how they pay in the PNC. The PNC are riggers. The PNC can't run nothing. The PNC are immoral. This is an organization you're talking about that represents half of the population. What you are doing is that you are delegitimizing the party. And since the party represents the race, you are delegitimizing the race. PPP leaders say all the time, my friend Donald Ramatar, Indians who support the PPP are doing it because the PPP is right. They're correct. Africans who support the PNC are misled because the PNC is not ordained to govern. So Africans are misled. You know, there was an old thing that white people are driven by reason and that black people are driven by emotions. That is, black people don't have the capacity to think. You hear the terms that they're using? David Hines on outbursts. David Hines anger. David Hines is a madman. Those are terms they use. Nelson Mandela, they bring in psychiatrists in the jail because he was mad. Leonard Howell, the founder of the Rastafari movement, they charge him for insanity. There's such a charge in the book, and they've always used it against black people. So not what they're saying. David Hines is mad. David Hines outbursts. David Hines has lost his marbles. That is all. I study it. That's why you all send me to school to do. We do not reason. We are driven by David Hines' emotional outbursts. Some of them even know the origins of that term when it used to be used against black people. My friend Ravi Dev always say, Friday afternoon when everybody walking, black man jumping fence for one party. We don't have a sense of making money. We don't have a sense of hard work. Indian people live to work. Sorry, Indian people work to live, and black man live to work. Ravi Dev quotes that all the time. Some white lady come, and she did that, and he quotes that. This is the way these people see us. So when Africans go over there, Africans have to adopt that rhetoric about their own people. Some of them don't know they're doing it. So when my friend Lenno says that when he looked at my tape, he saw vulgarity. Vulgarity. Because black and vulgarity go hand in hand, yeah? When Elvis Presley first came on the scene, he used to wind up on the stage and white people didn't like him because that vulgarity is to black people. Of course, Elvis come from Memphis, Tennessee. He mixed up with black people, so he knows to gyrate. They don't see our gyrating as poetry in motion. They see it as vulgarity. So when I use lick bottom, they don't see it as poetry, as imagery. They don't see it as that. My friend Lenno, who should have been on and of course decided not to come on, see it as vulgarity. David Hines is vulgar. And he has never seen or heard such vulgarity in 50 years. Lenno worked for my friend, my friend and brother, Comrade Ramjutan. All them are in the same party. And all you know what comrades like to say, all your ass. All your ass. The same bottom, the same arse. Our cultures always use the bottom and the arse in order to send a certain message. Lenno work with Comrade. Comrade was his comrade. And Comrade say, all your ass. What is different than that? And not that Comrade is wrong. Comrade is using language. But Lenno didn't see it then as vulgar. Indian people tell Jack Dio and all of them, tell Moses Nakamutu, you go over there to Grange and you lar. I used to check and see what Lara mean. When an Indian say you lar of all or la, whatever the term, you help me. But you all know what I'm talking about. And Lenno, who lives in a country and know that kind of language has always been used, call me vulgar. Because I use the same thing. But it is the vulgar African. When Indian people dance, when white people dance, it's classical dance, ballet. When Indian people dance, it's Indian Asiatic dance. When black people dance, it's gyrate. And what I'm doing here, I'm giving you all the subtext of what's going on in our country. And that my fight is not against James Bond and Lenno Craig and so on. Those brothers, find themselves in something that they don't even quite understand. I have been offered cars. I've been offered ministries to go over to the PPP. I've been offered a whole set of things. And I just tell them, man, you all insulting me. They stop now. Because they always feel that African people want something that's cost me. You strip it like you elder Kwayana, you never want nothing and you don't want nothing. I get cost every day. And indeed, one of the things that Kwayana put in my head is never to want something. Never to want something. That is why when he went with me to the airport in 1987, he said, do not come back to this country without a degree. And when I came back for the first time, I came back with 2 degrees. That is why I educated myself. You think it's Guyana? When I was finished my bachelor's degree, I wanted to come home to my country. A lady named Professor Shaw, she called me. She said, David, are you going to graduate school? I said, no, I'm going home to Guyana, professor. The next day, she bring 2 application forms, one for Howard and one for the University of Maryland. She said, fill this up. When I look and see the people charging $40, I said, oh, you $80? She said, no. And she carried those things, and I got accepted to both. Of course, I chose Howard. And when I finished my master's, I was on my way home. An African Babaloco, African professor, he said, you, David Hines, don't you know that there is money here to do a PhD for people like you? I said, no. I said, what do you mean? He said, your GPA is always at the top 3 every year. Right here. And he went into the office, bring out a form. It was about 10 minutes before the deadline, a Friday afternoon. I fill it up and I go in there. And I got a full scholarship to do my PhD at Howard University. But I couldn't walk in Guyana. The PPP prevent me from walking. They prevent me from walking at CARICOM. And I was not going to go to Guyana to beg anybody. So I made up my mind that I will work part of my year in America or wherever, and then I go home once I'm not working. 5 months per year, from 1997 to now. 97-3, this is 28 years, for the last 28 years. I spent 5 months in Guyana and 7 months outside of Guyana. And they tell me I live in Guyana. For a man who don't live in Guyana, they frighten so much. But I was not going to come to Guyana to beg anybody. I was not going to come to Guyana to lick anybody bottom. In order to get a job. And in order to get money. No. No. And so all the offers, a big man like you, David, you driving a little Ram. Come, let's give you a big car to drive. Hey, the chap who first tell me that was my teacher. I said, man, you teach me in school, and you know, want to tell me for come and sell me soul for a big car. But that is their modus operandi. They believe that we always want something. And some of us have to push back against that. Push back against it. And so you have a PPP who believe in their eternal right to govern because black people cannot govern. We just jumped the fence Friday night. Instead of planting rice to export, they said we plant food to eat. I will like eat. I will scrape hungry belly. And that is what my friend Dev and the others have put. They went before the United Nations. The government of Guyana went before the United Nations this past year and tell the United Nations black people are in the state they are not because of what the PPP do, but because our foreparents made bad choices. They plant provision to eat rather than plant rice to export. Believe me, that is what your government went before the United Nations. And if I lie, ask Darren Wade, ask Nigel Hughes, ask Vincent Alexander, ask Olive Sampson. They had to push back against it. Our government went there and said black people are poor today, not because of what government did, because the foreparents plant provision and planting or whatever for them to eat, rather than plant rice to export like our Indians do. Ignoring the fact that the first people who planted rice in Guyana was black people. South Carolina, North Carolina, they took 133 Bajan enslaved people. They took them there to start planting rice when they were transitioning from cotton to rice in the Carolinas. 133 Bajans were the first people that took there to plant rice. Our people came here with rice planting skills. Go study West African history. Go study the history of the Nile Valley. It's not Indians who bring rice and start planting rice here. It's Africans. My comrade Wazir Mohammed, he did his PhD on that. But yet they went to the United Nations and said, black people plant food for eat. They're stupid. They then plant food for export. That's why they're poor today. And so therefore the stage is set for control us. They already control us economically. Now they want to control us politically. And if you control us economically and politically, you control us spiritually and culturally. And people like David Einstein stand in the way of that. One thing Kwayana teach me. One thing, well, not one thing, plenty things he teach. But one of the things he taught us, study your people. Not just the politics, study the culture, study the history. And thank God for Howard University where I went to, I got a black education. I was allowed to study, whether at Howard University, whether you're doing physics or biology or psychology, you're studying it through a black lens. And thank God. Thank God. So that is the control. Well, so when Transparency International said that the government is the captive of economic and political elites, that's what they're saying. They're giving you all the finished material, the outcome. What I'm trying to give you all here is the process by which we arrive at that outcome. And the process begins with a thinking about black people. When Ravi Dev talks about black people liking to jump fence for go on party rather than on work, that is a loaded thing. And then he quotes Desmond Hoy. When Desmond Hoy says Desmond Hoy is saying it to mean something different from what Ravi says it to mean. Desmond Hoy will never say that black people are inferior because they're the jump fence and want to go on party. That is why now, when you go in the nightclubs them, and you see Indian people, Indian children, Indian young people, sorry, not children, young people in the clubs now, drinking more rum, gyrating more than black people because they can afford it. Black people can't afford it. We going back to them little kind of bars now. We can't go to them big nightclub in Georgetown. It's Indian kids, Indian young people. And they're scratching their head now. Because the thing that they pin on us as a negative, their children are doing it now. Which means that jumping fence to go on party is not a racial thing. It's a human thing. If it's a failure, it's a human failure, not an African failure. Who can party more than young people now? Young Indian people. Who playing the music the loudest now? I think when you look, it's not them little black boy. It's Indian boys and girls. But they manage over time to essentialize it as an African thing. And if you can't reason, if you can't reason, then you are emotional. Chronicle don't describe me as Dr. Hines. They dropped doctor from me name Lang. I'm not Dr. Hines. I never signed anything I put in the media with doctor. But the fact that they took doctor away from my name is the way of delegitimizing me. But really the end product is to delegitimize African. I don't get no bright people. If you all think alike, check the Chronicle. Doctor don't there behind me name. They don't call me doctor. They don't call me doctor. Freddie Kisunu was my friend who used to call me doctor so much that I used to feel so embarrassed. Freddie Kisunu no longer call me doctor, and he doesn't have a doctorate. So part of his thing is jealousy. Jealousy. I didn't stop Freddie from doing a doctorate. Freddie is capable of doing a doctorate. I didn't stop he. He do the coursework. He didn't write the dissertation. But he jealous. Political jealousy. Every day they try to delegitimize me. My friend Lenno goes and sit down with Freddie Kisoon every Monday and Wednesday evening on that program. And then calling me vulgar. Who can be more politically vulgar than Freddie Kisoon? Freddie Kisoon writes in his paper about people's sex life. The other day, two of his former comrades who are now dead, he put their sex life in his column. And Lenno sits down next to that man. And what is more politically vulgar than that? And Lenno called me vulgar. Lenno, I forgive you. I forgive you. I forgive you. Because that's the upbringing that I have. I forgive you. Because you sat around vulgarity all your life. All your political life, sorry. It's there. And you don't see it. But as I open my mouth, you call me politically vulgar. And you sit down with the most politically vulgar individual in Guyana, Freddie Kissoon. Freddie Kissoon writes column every day. And all he can do is gossip. His column is the gossip column. And you sit down next to that man. You sit down next to that man. But I forgive Freddie because at one time, Freddie stood on our side. Whether he was genuine or not, he stood on our side. And I forgive him every day. As I forgive you, Lenno, for calling me vulgar. I forgive you, because you're a brother. And I think you mean well. But you don't have the grasp of history to understand what you are getting into. At the end of the day, this is meant for you all, my brothers and sisters, for you all black people. Tell your children, tell your children, tell your children, speak to them that when they sell their vote, what they're doing is selling their freedom. When they sell the vote, they're selling their freedom. When they withhold their vote from their own leaders because somebody give them $1 million or give them a job for $200,000, they're selling their collective freedom. Look at what they do with those little girls at Chronicle and DPI. Send them out to take their past people. Send them out to go and make fun of AFC leaders and PNC leaders and WPA leaders. It hurts me when I see young black girls doing that because I know they don't want to do it. I know so many young black women who have left working in the state media because Kwame sending them to do all those kinds of things. I know that. One young lady said that she's a young professional. She write a long letter as a young professional. When I do her the shout, she walk in with Kwame in the apparatus. They bring she from Trinidad. And she right there in the paper as if she's some unattached African professor, put her degree underneath, she name. When I do get the truth, she walking with Kwame in the propaganda apparatus of the PPP government. So all them letters you see they put in there is those propaganda people that get walking, they put in letter and then sign in name and date, black name and date, and so forth. But I want those people to know that I am fighting for them too, because they cannot fight for themselves. And I'm fighting for them. And one day, when we get this PPP off our backs, they will shake my hand physically or vicariously. Because I would have freed them. And when the government changes, not one of them will lose their jobs. Not one of those little girls at Chronicle who Kwame sent in to make mischief. I can assure them that I will fight the new government for them to retain their jobs. I see my brother Clement Roy write a long epistle today. When the PPP came into power, Clement ethnically cleansed the foreign service. And Clement is a black man. He mix, but you know, he's black. And one lady who had an Indian last name, he kept her. When he go to America and he go in the embassy and he see the lady with the Indian last name, but it's a black woman. This is the nastiness that these black people do. But I give Clement a pass, Clement Delang in the PPP. And again, I am not a hateful person. And Lenno say hateful. Hate. I come from a race if we were hateful people. If we were hateful people after what was done to us for 400 years, we the licking down from Arirang to Arirang, we are the sanest people in the world. Because only sanity and compassion that could make people who enslave us. After we come out of enslavement, we hard-earned money between 1834 and 1838 and lend the slave master to get you out of bankruptcy. Our black people do that. That is the seed that I come from. If we were filled with hate, as they said, David Hines filled with hate, as Brother Bob says, hate is the reward for our love. Black people have to have enormous love. Enormous love. As Brother Alo said last night, we just jump in Diwali and Nag and Pagua. Do you ever see Indians come to a spiritual service? I'm not talking about individual Indians, in mass. Do you ever see them go to No, because they're socialized. Not that they would do, the human in them would not make them do it. I'm sure the human in them would say, these people embrace our culture, we can embrace their culture. But they're the political socialization that socialize them don't go there. So Brother Craig decided not to come, and I regret that he hasn't come, but he has given me the opportunity to say some things that need to be said tonight. And the headline for tomorrow Chronicle, David Hines teaches his people the real history of Guyana. I've given you all the headline. And for that, he's a racist. The racist David Hines. All of a sudden, black people talking to black people is racism. They never read a definition of racism. David Hines dividing, ERC, division. If you enticing people from one group to go and buy votes from their own people, it's not you doing the division. ERC should be telling the PPP that they're dividing black people. What David Hines is doing is trying to bring black people back together. One of the lackeys said it in a letter today, that David Hines said, close ranks. He telling black people, don't cuss Nigel Hughes, don't cuss Aubrey Norton, disagree with them, but don't cuss them. But yet I divide him. They put it in their own letter. In the beginning, there was the word. We shall be set free. We will be set free. But all of us have to embrace this thing. We are at a critical moment. I didn't study slavery to come here and to enslave my own people. I studied slavery so that I can understand the tactics and the strategy of slavery to prevent my people from being duped into going back into slavery. I love you all, always do. And the more they pressure me, the more they scandalize me, the freer I am to say black is beautiful, always. No surrender, no retreat. No surrender, no retreat. Thank you so very much. I was telling Comrade Lincoln Lewis, who called me just before the program, I was telling Lincoln, WP ain't get enough application forms now for the application for membership and so forth. It is good that our people are recognizing who's standing for them and who's standing for them. I do it not for membership. I do it not for political gain. I do it because it's the right thing to do. But if in the process people get closer to us, I thank you all. I thank all of you, all of you, all of you for the outpouring. I thank all of you for standing with us. I thank the opposition leader for not falling for the bait of wanting him to condemn me. And those who are silent, I thank you also for your silence. Silence is better than going out there and condemning your own. We are in this together, and we're going down the road because we have a date with destiny, Dr. Martin Luther King. And as CLR James says, we shall meet in the rendezvous of freedom. We shall meet as my people in our spiritual self-esteem. We shall meet on that beautiful, beautiful shore. That beautiful Zion, we shall meet.